10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Hello, everybody. Hello. I hope everyone is well. I apologize for the delay. Had something on the stove and didn't realize that the show was about to start. And I was like, oh my God, I'm cooking. Not a good time to have stuff on the stove as it was cooking. I want to thank Tina DeBella for being there right on time. As usual, I was about a minute off, so I apologize for that. And I do want to thank everyone that is involved in the program, because you guys make it all worthwhile. That's why I'm here. That's why I come back week after week. And we have a ton of stuff to talk about. It's just been a very busy week. I've been working on a lot of stories. There's a lot more to come up. Tina, I know you're there, and I know a few other people are there. Can you give me a thumbs up or something to let me know? Volume okay? Is everyone able to hear me all right? I just want to double check that. And let's get some of the housekeeping stuff out of the way while I wait for that. Obviously, one of the first things is on next week, we are expecting to have a couple of interviews. We will be speaking with Larry Sharpe of the Libertarian Party. He will be in Binghamton. We're going to be doing an interview with him on Wednesday. Please do look forward to that. You'll be able to see that. Actually, you'll be able to hear that on the No Soundbites Allowed podcast. And again, I should have mentioned this at first. I am your host, Michael Voss, the Dragon of the Southern Tier. And so I'll be interviewing Larry Sharpe on Wednesday, and I'll have that published thereafter. Thank you, Tina, for letting me know if sound is fine. And that should be a very interesting little bit of a program. I haven't talked to Mr. Sharpe since he was running for governor of New York in 2018, and I have done an interview with him and his lieutenant governor pick, Andrew Hollister. So I'm looking forward to speaking with him about the Libertarian Party, and now that they are an official party in New York State, they're competing directly with the Conservative Party, with the Democratic Party, the Working Families Party, the Republican Party. So this will definitely shake up and change the face of politics in New York State for every election going forward. We're going to see this affect the 2019 races, the 2020 races. We're going to see them involved in some, I would imagine, and I have reason to believe that we're going to see them involved in the New York 22nd race in 2020, which, believe it or not, has already started. There's already a lot of stuff going on with that. I'll talk about that in a moment. But also some of the local races, talking about city council, talking about mayor. We're going to see a lot of activity. And so we'll talk to Mr. Sharpe about that. So I wanted to get that out. I have also spoken with County Executive Jason Garnar, and he has confirmed again. We said this in person, on the phone, and on person. I spoke with him on Thursday night. In reference to coming onto the program, we'll be talking about the Greater Binghamton Fund and some of the things in the local area that are going to be developed. There's about $50 million with another $200 million set to be put into the city of Binghamton to help develop it and an economic boost. And we'll be talking with the county executive about that, as well as I'm going to be speaking with Mayor Rich David. Surprisingly, in all the time that Mayor David has been elected, he has never been on the program. I've talked to a lot of Republicans and a lot of Democrats, a lot of elected officials. I spoke to his predecessor, Mayor Matt Ryan, several times, but I've never actually spoken to Mayor David officially as an interview. And he's agreed he will be coming on, and he too will be speaking about the Greater Binghamton Fund and the economic development for downtown Binghamton as well as the city of Binghamton. So that's just a little bit of the housekeeping to get out of the way. A couple of interviews that will be coming up. I do expect to also be speaking with State Senator Fred Akshar shortly, probably next week or two, talking about what's going on in the state of New York and the New York State Senate and the new policies that are coming out. And I'll be getting into that in great detail. And we're just waiting for all of those politicians to give me the final dates. Other than Larry Sharpe, everyone else has not confirmed the final dates that we'll have them on, but they have promised it, and I can announce it. So we're looking forward to that. I should also mention, if you haven't noticed, you can call in and join in and talk on with the program. We always enjoy having your interaction. This is not about just me talking to you. This is about us talking about what's going on. This is a conversation between all of us. And it's important that we all get to have that conversation because, it matters to you. It matters to all of our lives. This is the stuff that changes our lives day after day. And it is very important for us to talk about it and remind the politicians. By the way, I know many politicians, local and statewide, that listen to this program on a regular basis to hear what's going on with you, to hear how you're feeling about all the issues that are going on. So please, don't be bashful. Ask a question. There's probably a politician locally that's listening to it, that's looking for your question to see what they need to address, because we have control of government, not them. And that's always important to mention. So there's a few other things. So that's something that's important. Also, I wanted to mention, and I'll flash back to this, as many people will see, we'll be expanding and be adding things on YouTube and on stream.me, and we'll be adding in a few other places. We're expanding the access to people to be able to hear the podcast, to be able to see the podcast. You can go to we're on Alexa. That's been confirmed. And you can use your Alexa and you can listen to the program that way. You can go, that's for the audio only, of course. But if you want to see the streaming as well, that'll be available on YouTube and a few other sites. So we're working on a lot of things developing it. And for those who are interested in advertising, getting involved, please get in touch with me. It's always fun. If you're looking to make a donation, absolutely, thank you, and we'll be happy to take it. All you have to do is go to PayPal info@vosconsult.com, and that'll be the way to make the donation that way. So we thank you for that. And we have a few other technological changes that are coming up too. So that covers a whole lot of basic stuff. Let's really get into it. Let's really talk about what's going on. Let me start off with everyone's favorite, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. What a wonderful person. Oh, she's just a darling. And if you didn't realize, that's sarcasm. Not my favorite member of Congress, even lower on the list than Anthony Brindisi in terms of congressmen that I look forward to. I mean, she's just way down on that list there. Freshman congressman out there, a democratic socialist, which realistically means communist in my point of view. She's been making a lot of news, a lot of headway out there, talking about green energy, among other things. She's got $40 trillion that she wants to spend. So she has plenty of things that she's been talking about. But I think one of the biggest things she's talking about is what's going on with green energy. That's her latest claim to fame. That's her latest big deal. Now, a lot of people have been hearing about this, and essentially the deal, I'll get to that in a second. Essentially what Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, or AOC as she likes to go by, has been saying is she wants to transform the United States of America. We're going to get rid of all coal fuel, all natural gas, any gasoline, oil, all of that's going to go. Okay, she's an eco-fanatic, and she believes that we need to have all renewable energy all day, everywhere. And that's all we're going to have because we're going to save the planet. She forgets the fact that there is no nation on the face of the earth that I am aware of or that I've been able to find that is 100% renewable fuel energy. And the reason for that is it's not possible. The current technology is not capable of providing nations all of their energy needs. Not only to not be able to provide it, but also not to do it consistently. You need an additional source. Nuclear, coal, gasoline. You need it. And she just doesn't seem to understand that. And she seems to be oblivious to that fact. But, we shouldn't be surprised because she's also said very clearly on 60 Minutes, she's not really worried about facts. What she's concerned about is what she believes is morally right. What her ethics and her viewpoints are, what she believes in, is the only thing that matters. And whether or not she gets the facts right, well, that's not important. That's for other people to worry about. She only has to worry about whether or not she likes it. And if she likes it, well, then it's fine and she can say whatever she wants. God forbid anyone else comes up and says, you don't have your facts straight. And in particular with this, one of the biggest things is if we were to actually do what Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez or Representative Ocasio-Cortez actually believes, there would be an impact. The first thing would be that the cost of electricity would go up for the average person in New York State and across the country, roughly 50% on average. In addition, so you're going to pay more, and businesses would pay up to 60% more for their electricity. Now, who is in favor of paying more to turn on their lights, to be able to heat their homes, to get on the internet? Because you're going to pay a lot more. And Tina didn't take long. Tina DeBella has mentioned she says Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is an idiot. What is scarier is the people voted for her. Yep, a communist. Yes, she's a communist. Well, Tina, I hate to break this to you, but I'm only tipping the iceberg here. Not only is your electricity going to go up on average 50% if we listen to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, well, what she also forgot to mention to people is it's going to cost an additional $5.2 trillion. It's also going to cut the national income. Your income, you're going to lose, if you have a family of four, about $2,400, and proportionately for everyone else. And 1 million people will lose their jobs. The national debt will increase per person, per family of four in the United States by $10,000. Let's think about those numbers for a second. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez wants to take, on average, about $600 per person, $2,400 for a family of four in America. Take that out of your income. You won't have that money. You're going to pay 60%, 40 to 60% more for your electricity, and 1 million people will lose their jobs. Exactly who's being helped by this? By the way, it's still functionally impossible to do. Solar collectors are not efficient. We've been working on that for 70 years now. They are still not efficient enough. We would need to build a brand new electric grid. Okay, this is the stuff that you don't hear in the news because they're too busy. They only give you a minute and a half to talk about this, and they only hit a couple of bullet points, and they don't go into it. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez doesn't care to tell you facts. She's already admitted that in 60 Minutes. She doesn't care about facts. She just wants you to have the feeling like something is positively happening. She doesn't care about consequences. So we would need to build an entire new energy grid, which is impossible. It's going to, and by the way, she's going to make sure for her to do this, you have to change every single house. Every homeowner would have to switch their entire electrical grid in their house to live up to what she wants. Besides all the cities, all the streets, everything else. You're talking about $6.5 trillion. $6.5 trillion, which is no small investment. We're talking about doubling the amount of money that is spent by the federal government in a year. We're talking about essentially doubling the debt of the nation every year. And this is just a start. And we're talking about unemployment massively increasing. You're looking at about a 3% increase in the unemployment rate just to make her feel better, to do something that no other nation in the world is doing. And by the way, she's going to increase taxes to as high as 70%, which in New York State would mean 86%. And if she's right, she's asking for, she's asking for taxes that are higher than anywhere else in the world, as far as I'm aware. No socialist nation is looking to have taxes as high as Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. If you're looking at Denmark, I know everyone loves to talk about Denmark. It's the wonderkind of socialism, even though it's not a socialist state. Just ask Denmark. They will tell you that themselves. They're not a socialist country, according to Denmark itself. And in Sweden as well. Their top tax rates are somewhere around 50%. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez wants 70%. And I guarantee you, the middle class of America is going to be hit, because we are already seeing it. In New York State right now, we again have hit, I believe it was the 4th year in a row, the #1 state everyone was leaving. This year, and a lot of people don't know this, in New York State, we had the biggest area that people left was Westchester and Putnam counties. 28,000 people left. $1.3 billion walked away with them, because they can't stand the politics, they can't stand the economics of New York State, they can't survive. That means on average, each person who left New York State from Westchester County, that took out $46,000 of revenue. That's people going to restaurants, that's paying taxes, that's working in businesses, keeping the lights on for dozens of other people. That has a huge impact. That hurts. That's why New York State is failing massively, because they're becoming, according to Governor Cuomo, we want to be the capital of the leader of progressivism in the United States. And just like everywhere else where we have seen progressives, which are otherwise known as socialists, everywhere we've seen it, it is a failed nation. It is a failed city. It is a failed state. California, in debt. Horrible. People sleeping on the streets. It's look at Nancy Pelosi's district. The homeless problem is immense. Look at Seattle. They went socialist. How many businesses were lost when they increased the minimum wage? 30% citywide. These are the problems that Governor Cuomo seems to think is a brilliant idea, along with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez cheerleading the way forward with a smile on her face and facts thrown to the side, because the facts don't stand up to it. But Tina DeBella mentions, and she's an economics major, says a lot about our colleges. Oh, it says a hell of a lot about our colleges. For someone who's an economics major or has a degree, she seems to be an economic idiot. She really has no understanding of the consequences of what she's saying and how that affects people and how it negatively impacts the economy. $6.5 trillion? And that's the low-end estimate. That's the low end. It could cost more. And knowing our government, whenever the government does anything, it always costs more. So when she says, oh, it's affordable, no, it's not. Her answer on how it's affordable, and this is important, people, because remember, you're paying for all this. It's going to come out of your taxes. It's going to come out of your kids' taxes. It's going to keep your job, your pay at work down. It's going to stop people from being able to open up new businesses, or from you from opening up a new business, so that you can make more money. This is going to hurt everyone. And her answer to be able, how do we afford $6.5 trillion? And her answer is raise taxes and print more money. Now, let me explain why that's really, really stupid, especially for someone who has an economics degree. I'm 50 years old, and I hope I don't look it, but I'm 50 years old. And I know that back in the 1980s, people who were around then, you may remember a saying, banana republics. Now, it's not the most pleasant term, but it was a way that people were referring to the economic systems in South America. And all the nations in South America were massively in debt, could not pay. Their economies were non-existent, essentially. And so every one of them went around, and what they decided to do is they revalued. They just started printing money. They devalued their money. And they were printing it by the boatload. And it would take, you'd pay 10,000 pesos or whatever to be able to get a loaf of bread. That's what Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez thinks is the right answer. The United States should just print money so that $10 is worth 50 cents and pay off the $6.5 trillion that way. And people who don't know anything about economics and how it works may say, well, the government can just print money. It's a great idea. No, it's not. Because then your money's worthless. And remember, this doesn't just affect the United States. The dollar is the currency of the world, which helps us in trade, which makes us a very important nation in the world. If we devalue the dollar, not only do we destroy our economy, we would take the entire world into a depression greater than the Great Depression, and we would destroy those economies, and everyone would abandon the dollar and the goods of the United States because they would become absolutely too expensive to buy. No one would do business with us. Our economy would tank. We would take down half the world along with us, and they would abandon the dollar and probably pick up China's currency as the new world currency, and we lose. These are the consequences. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, they tell me she has a degree in economics, and I tell you, this is basic economics 101. If she has a degree in economics, then I am a rocket scientist, and I'll get people to Mars, because obviously science and math can't be that important. Who knows? So she's got me going. But she's only one factor, and that's a big one, though. And this is why I don't like her even more than Anthony Brindisi. Anthony Brindisi may be just what I would call the equivalent of milquetoast as a politician. He's just there in the background. He'll say yes to whatever the Democratic Party really says. And that's my opinion at this time, Anthony's been in for a week. He's done nothing but, yes man, everything that the Democratic Party has done. Maybe he'll change my opinion. On January 22nd, he'll be in Binghamton. I'll be able to ask him some questions. He's promised to come onto this program 5 times now. Hopefully he'll show up and I'll be able to ask him questions, and maybe he'll be able to change my opinion. I don't know. I will give him the opportunity to explain to me why that would be wrong, but that's where I stand right now. But even he is leaps and bounds ahead of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and the absolutely silly things that she's saying that make no sense. By the way, I didn't get a chance to say, Jonathan, good to see you here. I'm always happy to hear you. And I know you're on and you're listening, so I can't wait to hear what you have to say. Jonathan has some great conversations with me off air. I'd love for him to start here. But these are just my thoughts, and this is what I'm understanding about this, and the sources that I'm getting this from. So if you disagree, fantastic. Tell me why. Tell me how I'm wrong about this. Something else I wanted to mention about the Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. It's amazing that so many Democrats, we're seeing Bernie Sanders, 40 other Democrats are reportedly in support of this Green Deal. 600 eco-fanatical organizations are all out there saying, yes, we've got to do this. And I had to stop, and I did a podcast about this yesterday, as a matter of fact. I did what I call a speed podcast. It takes about 15 minutes, and I just jumped right on this. It's really funny to me that Democrats have absolutely no problem paying for $6.5 trillion to go completely green, which we can't possibly do, as an experiment with our nation, an experiment with our electricity and our energy needs in the nation. They're willing to experiment with that for $6.5 trillion. They're willing to impose a Medicare for all, destroying our health care system, for $32 trillion. They're more than willing to increase the taxes, the debt of every single man, woman, and child in the United States by 300% or more. But yet, those very same Democrats won't pay $5 billion, not trillion, $5 billion to build a wall. Even if they thought that the wall, and I have to say, even if you believe that the southern border wall is an experiment, just an idea, it's just a neat trick, at $5 billion, it is 0.01% of what Democrats are looking to spend. It's nothing. There is absolutely no reason, and they've made the argument it's economic, it costs too much money. What are you talking about? It costs too much money. There's $6 trillion that they want to spend just to do the electrical. $32 trillion for that. They want to get rid of student loans and free college. That's another $2 trillion. They have all these. They're spending money. Drunk sailors, a drunk Navy couldn't spend as much money. And literally, the defense budget cannot keep up with the spending the Democrats are talking about spending, with no guarantee that any of it will be worthwhile whatsoever. No guarantee whatsoever. These are ideas that they have because it makes them feel good, with absolutely no fact that says that this would actually be beneficial to anyone if it can be done. And they're telling me that you can't spend $5 billion on a border wall. Rumor is that there have even been negotiations to make it $2.5 billion. I mean, these are ridiculous numbers. This is ridiculous. And that's why the government is shut down. You can't look at this, I believe, and maybe, I don't know, John, Tina, you guys tell me. Maybe I'm wrong. But when I look at this and I say, the government shut down over $5 billion, but they're going to spend trillions, then what's going on? Why are we having this conversation? Why is the government shut down? Even if you don't like the border wall, let it go, because it's $5 billion versus $1 trillion. You can't make that argument. You can't tell me it's not affordable. You can't tell me you can have that argument. On top of the fact that it's going to slow down the number of people who are illegal aliens in the United States. It's going to slow down the importation of heroin and other drugs into the United States that are destroying families, and slow down the number of illegal aliens that are criminals who are killing and harming American citizens. And no, it's never going to stop it. But even if you can slow it down, I mean, a wall is a prevention. It's not a stop. You can always get over or around or under a wall eventually. Yes, you can. But we create laws and we institute things to prevent and to slow down and deter. I mean, think about it. They want to build walls basically around all the schools to prevent mass shootings. Well, if they're saying walls don't work, why are we trying to put walls around schools? Why are we putting in metal detectors in schools? Why are we going through all the problems and trying to make our schools little prisons if Democrats don't believe that any of that works? Either it works, and therefore it should work down on the southern border, or it doesn't work, and then we're wasting money and time, and it's a useless process for the schools because they know it doesn't work. It's one or the other. You can't tell me, well, protecting our schools by putting up metal detectors and new safety doors and limiting the way people have access to the building works, and doing the same thing at our southern border doesn't work. You can't tell me that. It's the same principles. This is physics. Again, this is what Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez likes to call facts, and they're not as important as being morally right, or in other words, being a socialist. Being a socialist is far more important because it makes her feel better than actually having to have a fact behind what she's talking about. But that's just, my understanding of it. And again, we're having a conversation, folks. And I know Tina's just brimming to say something. Go ahead, Tina. And Jonathan as well. And I am checking on Twitter as well for everything. We're live here, so we're having conversations on all the mediums. And if you really want to, and you think I'm really out of my mind and it takes too long to type, call in. I'll be happy to put you on air, and we'll listen to you live and we'll talk about it. Because I'm not perfect. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe I didn't catch everything. We'll see. But let's move on. That's enough of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She drives me nuts. And then we go to something else that I thought in the last week really deserved a little more attention, is Senator Dianne Feinstein. And this image is a little bit older. It goes back to about 2015, as I recall. But I think it still stands as important as it ever has. Dianne Feinstein, a woman who has absolutely no idea what a firearm is or what to do with it, is as dangerous as ever. because Senator Dianne Feinstein is now trying to put out an assault weapons ban for 2019. And she has no idea what she's talking about. Wait a minute, before I go further, Jonathan and Tina both had comments. John mentions, I do have to agree that there is a possibility of a major ecological impact with potential of being as disastrous as removing wolves from Yellowstone. That's my research for today. Still has nothing to do with her plan. Okay, that's interesting. That's an interesting point. All right. There's a lot in that, John. A lot in that. You can't just say that and say that's all you got. But okay. And Tina DeBella mentions it's the left's, quote, scare the people, quote, tactics. Most people just don't understand Economics 101 and believe blindly without thinking for themselves. And you're right, Tina, I agree with that. Far too many people just blindly believe whatever someone says to them. When they say, I'm an elected official, well, then you must be smart and you must know what you're talking about. I can tell you from personal experience in 12 years of political commentary and talking to, God, just about every politician and every candidate for a politician in the New York 22nd District, 8 counties of New York, as well as several throughout the state and down in D.C. And I can tell you, many of these people are no smarter than anyone you've ever met in your life. An election did not make them smarter. They were just as loopy the day before they got elected as the day after. There is no osmosis. They don't suddenly get smarter. They don't know more about what they're talking about. I've just known too many of them. So it's just crazy. Jonathan mentioned, also wanted to reply that he knows. And sorry, he's looking into it. No, please, double check me. I don't mind. That's why I show the sites of where I find the information. Because if I've misread something, now you have a source you can go right to. By the way, for the green energy deal, that's from the heritage.org. And they had also another analysis with CDA. And that's where you'll be able to find it. The article's A Renewable Energy Standard, what will really cost Americans, what it will really cost Americans. And you can look into that for yourself and see that. Now, I was talking about Senator Dianne Feinstein, the brilliant woman who doesn't know what a firearm is, and very often, and by the way, even though this is from 2015, I have a picture of Dianne Feinstein. For those who are just listening to the audio, I have a picture of Dianne Feinstein as she's holding an AK-47 with a 50-round magazine drum, her finger on the trigger pointing the gun at the audience. It is pretty much one of the first lessons you learn in handling firearms and firearm safety is you never point the firearm at any human being. You try to point it downrange away from people. Even if the weapon is completely empty, it is just a matter of etiquette and safety and procedure. You never point it at people. She doesn't even know enough about that. And what makes it even worse, besides the fact that she is pointing this firearm at human beings, she's got her finger on the trigger. Can you believe it? She's ready to kill everyone there. As she talks about gun safety, we have to be safe with firearms. She's the least safe person in there. But that's another thing. Now, here's my thing about Senator Dianne Feinstein and why she so upset me. As I mentioned, she's looking to do the assault weapons ban of 2019. She's going to take 205 firearms, rifles, and guns, and she's going to say, you just can't own it. You don't have the right to own them because she doesn't like them. Now, that means that, and the way she defines that is the Ruger Mini 14. I didn't have a chance to get the image, but the Ruger Mini 14 has a couple of versions, actually 5 versions. One of them is a wood finished rifle, which is a semi-automatic rifle, shoots a .22, 224 rifle, a round. And there's also the Mini 14 Tactical, which is all metal. The firearms are exactly the same. They are made the same. They fire the same ammunition. They have all the same specific specifications. There's no difference. It is the same model, except one is made with wood, with a wood finish for the handle, and another that is made out of all metal. And according to Dianne Feinstein, the brilliant gunsmith that she is, and many of the other Democrats that believe somehow in the same logic or illogic that she does, that because one of those rifles is made out of all metal, it is more dangerous, even though the one that's made out of wood is exactly the same. That's the kind of ban she's talking about. If it's metal, if it's ever shown up in a movie or a TV show, well, we have to ban it because it's dangerous. Whether or not it actually functionally has anything to do with the firearm itself, and quite honestly, I've never known a firearm that ever fired by itself. So it's never just a firearm that's dangerous. And Felicia Mitchell joined us, and hello, Felicia, good to see you. So Dianne Feinstein, in her brilliance, decided that she wanted to put up a press release to let people know what this bill is going to do. And her justification, and this is the part that's really important, the way she justifies why we need an assault weapons ban, and I have it up on the screen, and people, if you see the video, you'll see this. She notes that it's, and I'm quoting here, quote, mass shootings that took place last year during using military-style assault rifles. Before I go any further, let me stop. Military-style assault weapons. That is a lie. That makes no sense. There is no such weapon. It's stupid. So if you say that, you have absolutely no idea what you're talking about. You don't know anything about firearms. Quite honestly, if you call a semi-automatic rifle a firearm, automatically anyone who knows anything about firearms will know you have no idea what you're talking about. A semi-automatic rifle is not an assault weapon. An assault weapon is a fully automatic machine gun. Not the same thing at all. But this is from Dianne Feinstein, January 2019. She wrote this to say that we need to have an assault ban. And what does she do? She cites the Las Vegas shooting, which took place in 2017. She cites it as having taken place in October of 2018. She cites the Sutherland Springs shooting, which was at a church in Texas, in October of 2018. That happened in September of 2017. And she does cite correctly the Parkland, Florida shooting, which happened in February 2018, which is actually correct. So let me stop on that as well. So Dianne Feinstein is trying to justify denying people their Second Amendment rights because she doesn't like firearms that show up in movies. And so therefore you shouldn't have it because she doesn't like it. And the reason for that is there was a very sick person in Las Vegas, but she lies about the year so that you'll be scared. And hopefully she thinks you didn't remember when it happened. So you think, oh my God, this just happened. No, it didn't. And she puts these two events in the same month. So it's happening every day. Every day there was a Las Vegas shooting, and then there was the Texas shooting in a church. Oh my God, and they happened right after each other. This is an epidemic. No, it's not. That's a lie. That is a lie to get your emotions going. This is the, morally right thing that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is talking about. She wants you to feel a certain way. It doesn't matter that the facts don't match up, because it's not accurate at all. And by the way, in the Texas shooting at the church, do you know how people were saved there? Because one of the members of that church went out, got his firearm, which happened to be an AR-15, and took out the shooter. That's how he stopped and saved people's lives. Not because the police showed up, not because of anything. One of the members of the church got his gun, a good guy with a gun, got his gun, got his firearm, and saved the people in the church. But they don't want to talk about that part. It's just ridiculous. And I hate when I see people who are posing and using their position of power to try and make people think, well, since I have a position of power, I must be right. No, No, you're not right. You're still an idiot. It makes no sense. First of all, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't know how to handle the firearm. You're talking about gun safety. You don't even know what gun safety is. And then you're misrepresenting absolute facts. Facts where people were injured and killed. Something that you need to be seriously correct about. And I'm not saying that we don't need to ensure that crazy people and criminals don't get firearms. But out of the 160 million people who have firearms in the United States right now, less than the majority, 99.9999% of all of those people have no problems whatsoever. Your neighbor has a firearm. There are enough firearms in the United States. There are 350 million firearms in the United States. 160 million people have them. There are more firearms than there are people. Half the nation literally own those firearms. Your next door neighbor owns a firearm. You may not know about it. It's because you don't need to, and it's safe. But that firearm is there. And you're perfectly fine. That's how the numbers break down. 1 out of 2 people own a firearm in the United States. You didn't know that, and you were completely safe and okay with it. Until Senator Dianne Feinstein and those who hate the Second Amendment decided to say, you don't have that right. That's just very wrong. That drives me nuts. And we don't talk about that in the news media. We don't talk about that in politics because, it's not the most friendly thought if you want to take away people's rights. So it's crazy. And it just makes me so upset. It just makes me so upset because it makes no sense whatsoever. But it's that kind of mentality that leads to things like in New York State, they want to try and ban ammunition. And only the people they authorize, only the people that the government likes should be able to buy ammo for any kind of firearm. And that you should be put on a no-gun database. We're going to put a list together of people that someone in the government arbitrarily decided is going to be able to be put on the list. Some bean counter. Someone is going to say, well, I don't like you. You're on the no-gun list, so you can't buy ammunition or firearms. Why? Because they don't agree with my politics? Because I'm a Republican? Because I'm a conservative Republican and I'm black? Because there's no real stipulation on this. You could be put on that list for that reason. Or maybe it's a combination of things. They're going to put you on the ammo ban. By the way, in New York State, that bill is S1038. And it's in the New York State Senate right now under consideration. So they're going to say, I can't get ammo because they went the other bill that they're looking to pass, which is the social media password bill by our great friend, Senator
To find out, we've invited Kevin Parker on the show tonight. He is the New York State Senator from Brooklyn. You just saw on that tape.
And he came up with this wonderful idea, and I just showed a clip from when he was on Tucker Carlson on Fox News in November, actually December. But he wants to go into your social media for 3 years and look at everything. He wants to look at your private messages. He wants to look at your text. He wants to look at who you talk to and direct messages, pictures that you took. And he wants to be able to look at that and say, well, I think this person should be able to have the right to have a firearm, and that person doesn't. And by the way, since you talked to him, because you saw this podcast, you are no longer capable of getting a firearm because he doesn't, you're dangerous. Mike's a political conservative. He's in favor of the Second Amendment. He wants people to have firearms if they want them, like the Constitution guarantees. How dare you? He's dangerous. And since you listen to it, you don't get to have a firearm either. We'll take away your permit. And we'll put you on the no-gun list as part of the ammo ban to make sure you can never get ammunition. In case we miss any firearms, you won't be able to take that. And just in case we missed anything there, they have yet another bill, which is, of course, the red flag legislation, which is also part of this whole process of taking away your due process so that you have no choice. And they will make sure that because you're on the no gun ban list, because you can't get ammunition, because they've checked into your social media and found every friend and everybody that you know, and they're taking away all of their firearms, well, what happens then with the red flag legislation? Just to make it really final, they take away your kids. And that's the part that no one talks about when it comes to the red flag legislation. And I'm very upset about this. New York State requires that if a court decides to take away your Second Amendment right, even though they didn't tell you about it, you never got a chance to defend yourself, it is a requirement of New York State, the Child Protective Services, CPS, that they must take your child out of that home because it is too dangerous. So they're going to, by using those 3 bills, they're able to turn you into a monster who has never, and by the way, you know what you didn't hear in any of those bills? The ammo bill, the social media password bill, the red flag legislation. You know what's the one thing you don't hear about that at any point? That you committed a crime. You've never committed a crime. You've done nothing illegal. The government is not. That's what New York State, and that is what Dianne Feinstein and Governor Cuomo, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and yes, Representative Anthony Brindisi, what they have all been saying is, we want to punish you for having, and this is why I get so upset, they want to punish you for having the right in the Constitution to own a firearm. And you have committed no crime, but they will punish you anyway, economically, socially, and physically. Emotionally, they're going to take away your kids. This is all going to be public information. It's going to affect your job. It's going to affect your neighbors, your interactions with your friends. It's going to affect your reputation, your ability to maintain your livelihood. This is what they're looking to do. Because you own a firearm, or you're thinking of owning a firearm, or if you know someone who owns a firearm, that's what these bills do. That's what that password, giving the government your personal information for all of your social media and your searches on the internet for a year, they're able to find out everything and everyone you know so that they can target each and every one of those individuals and punish them for the Second Amendment, one of the oldest, most important, and most foundational of our rights, guaranteed above and beyond the government itself. The government did not give us the power or the right to own firearms. That is established in our Constitution. And yet they want to take that away. The government wants to take away a power they can't give and, quite honestly, can't take unless we allow the government to do it. If we let Dianne Feinstein go forward, if we let Governor Cuomo move forward, if we let State Senator Kevin Parker move forward, if we let Representative Anthony Brindisi go forward and take away our right to defend ourselves, period, full stop, defend ourselves, then what else can we do? If they can come in and punish us for having a right and we no longer can defend ourselves, what will they do next? And in these bills, we're looking at due process, the ability to defend yourself, completely eliminated. You don't get to defend yourself. You're punished first, whether or not you're actually guilty. And there is no crime to be guilty of to be punished for. There is no crime in owning a firearm. You can legally own a firearm. That's not a problem, except they want to make it a problem so that they can, and they're going to punish you until it is a problem. I'm sorry, that gets me really upset. It makes me inflamed, and I get very angry about that. Nobody should be able to have that right. That's wrong. That is morally wrong, ethically wrong. It is legally and constitutionally wrong. And we should never allow them to have this power. And the only way they can do this is if we decide, well, we're not going to say anything. We're not going to do anything. And that's scary. That is terrifying to me, that we could possibly run into that situation. But again, this is my thought. You may think I'm wrong. I'd love to hear from people who say, no, Mike, that's not correct. You're just misunderstanding. We should give the government, we should give up our Fourth Amendment right to privacy, to give it to the government so we can exercise our Second Amendment right. We should give the government that information so that they can use it any way they want. We don't know where they're going to store the information. We don't know who's going to have access to the information. We don't know who's going to collect the information. We don't know what they're going to do with the information. Although we can guess that if the government has information that they can charge you with a crime with because they don't like what they saw, the answer they got, why not? And I'm supposed to believe that, no, Mike, the government would never do that. The government's not corrupt. Governor Cuomo is not corrupt. How many politicians have been kicked out of office, out of Congress, or the New York State Assembly, or the New York State Senate in just the last 5 years, or convicted because of corruption? Buffalo Billions, anyone? Come on, let's think about this. And our government's it's so pure because they were elected. And because they got elected, well, that made them into saints. They're just innocent people. They're saints walking around, especially if they're a Democrat. Well, Democrats are obviously saints. They're obviously, socialist, saint. They start with S. They must be the same thing. And I do want to make a slight statement here. As upset as I get, and I know I say Democrat a lot, and it's a shorthand. A lot of people use that shorthand. I do want to make I know too many Democrats that I do need to say, there is a big difference between a Democrat and a liberal or a progressive, which are socialists. And they use the word progressive or liberal because socialist is a very well-known name. It's directly connected to communism, it is the precursor for, and a lot of people are very on guard about that. So to keep people off guard and make it sound much better than it is, they use things like, well, we're part of the Green Party, like Howie Hawkins, who is a communist by his own definition, and I have video of him admitting he's a communist. We have them using things like they're a democratic socialist, which is a communist. Look at every nation that is a democratic socialist nation is a communist nation. That's China, that's North Korea, that's Venezuela. They're communists. So there is a difference between being a Democrat and being a progressive. And progressives are socialists, which are communists, in my opinion. And you may disagree with that, but please explain the logic to me how it isn't. Because in my real life and in my understanding of the reading, that's exactly what it is. But that's when we see how it drives me nuts. So no, you could be a rank and file Democrat member of the party. You're a good person, and you don't believe in what Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is doing. You may not believe what Anthony Brindisi or Senator Dianne Feinstein are doing. And I would not be surprised that the majority of the party doesn't believe that. But sadly, and this is true of also Republicans, 20% of everybody in a party votes straight down the line that party. So conservatives, if you're in a conservative party, 20% of that party votes straight down the line conservative. 20% of the Republican Party votes straight line Republican. 20% of Democrats vote straight line Democrat. Libertarians, so on and so on. And that's just sad. And that's 20% of the population. Everyone who's a political analyst knows this. We always take that into account. If you have a candidate who has especially the major party lines, Republican or Democrat, they're guaranteed to get at least 20% of any vote. Always, every time. Because there are people who will vote the party, even if they hate this person, they always vote. How many times have you heard someone say, I always vote Democrat? I'll vote. If you're a Democrat, I'll vote for you. Or you may have heard them say it about Republicans or Libertarians, so forth, but they'll say it all the time. Because it doesn't matter, they just vote a party. And that's sad when we don't evaluate what these people are doing, what they stand for, and the difference between what one person and the extreme of the party is. To be a progressive, and ask many progressives. I've talked to many progressives. Bobby Black here in the Southern Tier, Bobby Black, Larry Parham, Sharon Ball. I'm just thinking of a couple of people off the top of my head. Mary Clark. These are people who do not identify as Democrats. They're progressives. And they would actually be insulted if you were to tell them that they're a Democrat. Matt Ryan, a few others. So there is a very big difference there, and I do recognize that. Tina mentions, and I did see your message there, Tina, so I want to address it. Tina says, I think you're correct, but I don't think it matters anymore what we think, what is constitutional or legal. They ignore the Constitution, and if the people in power ignore laws, laws have no meaning. Well, that is one. You're right, Tina. You're right. But that's why, part of the reason why I do this and have this conversation with everybody and share our thoughts together. Because if we decide we don't want a law to happen and we think a politician has done the wrong thing, we can make a change. We are the government. At the end of the day, at the beginning of the day, at the middle of the day, at the end of the day, we are the government. We have control of everything. And so we can make that decision. And the politicians who ignore the Constitution, the laws, we can have an impact on them. They aren't the final word, ever. And we can hold them accountable. And that's both in funding, that's in voting for them, in putting up challengers to them, in making enough of an outcry to make sure that they have no choice but to vote one way or another. We can do that. It just means we have to be active. We have to be informed, and we have to be active. Hopefully I'm helping with the informed, although this is an informed commentary. But that's why I also give you sites and information, why people who go to the video, you'll see if you go to my audio only, in the description there are always sources in there. Or if you go over to my videos, you'll see the video where I show the links and the law, legislation and such, so that you'll be able to know for yourself. And don't take my word for it. I don't expect you to. I don't want you to. Go and look it up for yourself and make your decision and decide for yourself. I'm just giving you my impression based on the research I've already done, and I'm showing you the research I've done. You can go and run with it and do whatever you want. Believe whatever you want. That is your right. I just want you to be informed. And I also want you to know my opinion of it, because I think it's pretty accurate at the end of the day. And I do believe that reasonable people can have reasonable disagreements. But that's not what we're seeing in our government right now. We're not seeing compromise. We're not seeing reasonable disagreement. I'll go back to the southern border wall. Democrats want to spend $40 trillion if we're looking at the full package of everything they want to do. The full package of what they want to do. They want to spend $40 trillion. Even looking at the smallest thing that they want to do, which is to use to take back the tax breaks that have created 3.7%, 3.9% unemployment rate, that have increased the number of small businesses by 9 million per month. That kind of economic stimulus, they want to get rid of that stimulus, kill the economic growth that we've seen in our nation, and they want to use that to pay people for being poor. That was actually Kamala Harris who came up with that idea. Kamala Harris in New Hampshire, as she's been running for president, for the presidential nomination for the Democratic Party, has come up and proposed an idea where she will reuse increased taxes, take the money that was allocated to the tax cuts, and pay people $250 a month, $6,000 a year to be poor. There's your upward mobility that's the answer for the progressives of the Democratic Party. The answer is, how are we going to take care of people? Will we uplift people? Yeah. What we'll do is we'll pay them to be poor. We'll keep them in exactly the same economic status that they have right now and double down and make them locked in, so they are desperate and in need of the government to take care of them and therefore keep us in power. I really don't like that idea. And if Kamala Harris believes that that is the best way to help poor people is by paying them to be poor and locking them into that economic cycle, then I think she has no idea what she's talking about. She's been hanging out with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez far too much, and she needs to be voted out of office, let alone not elected president or even nominated. She needs to be kicked out. But if people have been following my podcast, you know that she is one of the three people I believe, will end up in 2020 facing Donald Trump. I believe that it'll be Elizabeth Warren on the top of the ticket running as president with either Kamala Harris, Senator Kamala Harris, or Senator Kirsten Gillibrand as the vice president. It'll be an all-women format against the evil of, Donald Trump. Even though if you actually step away from his tweets and actually look at his policies, and not so evil. Not when America's doing much better than Obama could even envision. You can't say it's all evil, but they do. They do anyway. So I was talking about this, and let me catch back up to where I was going to go. So since I was talking about the fact that Senator Dianne Feinstein is resorting to lying to the public to get an emotional response, because that's the only way she believes that she can bully people into doing what she wants, well, she's not alone. And it's not just her, it's Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez as well, who believes that being morally right is far more important than being factually correct. And now there's yet another progressive, who's Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, who we have now learned, as it's been reported January 10th on the WashingtonExaminer.com, that Kirsten Gillibrand was lying to the public. She lied. It was just November of 2018. Senator Kirsten Gillibrand was asked. She had been avoiding doing a debate. There was so much of a public outcry saying, how dare you? You have a challenger qualified. You need to do a debate. She was in New Hampshire. I love this. 2018, Senator Kirsten Gillibrand spent a good part of the year politicking in New Hampshire for the 2020 presidential bid rather than running for re-election in New York State. She came back to New York State to do a debate so that she could keep her senatorial position, and promised the public on air, looking dead into the camera, and said if she were re-elected as senator for New York, the junior senator for New York, that she would finish her full term. And she said she would complete that term. It is now 60 some odd days later, and she is opening an office in Troy, New York for her 2020 presidential bid. That is a lie. That's not a misstatement. That's not a recalculation. That is a lie. 60 days earlier, for the sake of being reelected, she told the people whatever was necessary. And then 60 days later, she assumes that we've all forgotten, that we're all stupid, that we can't look at a video and don't remember what she said, and she's now running for president. And the sad thing is, 20% of the Democratic Party will accept that and say, sure, why not? And she deserves to be president, even though she lies to Democrats. And mostly she was lying to Democratic. I mean, New York State is a massively super blue Democratic stronghold. Most of the voters, well over 50% of the voters in the state are Democrats. She wasn't lying to Republicans who were really not voting for her. She was lying to Democrats. She was lying to the Democratic Party about her intentions with the Democratic Party. She was lying to the very people that believe in her and believe in her party, and that's even worse. I mean, it's never good for a politician to lie. But to me, it's a little bit worse when your very own people, the people who are your lifeblood of your party, who are dependent on you to stand for the moral issues, the ethics of your party, the core of your party and its values, and you lie to their face. I don't know, that just stings. But that's our wonderful Senator Kirsten Gillibrand. Got reelected, doesn't matter that she lied, and now here she is going for president. How can people not be pissed off about that? I really would love to hear from I would love to hear from any progressive, any liberal, and explain to me why Kirsten Gillibrand should be considered for president when she lied to every single constituent she had. I would like to hear from any Democrat, any liberal, any progressive, and explain to me why you should not be upset that your politician lied to your face for the mere purpose of being elected and is using you to get a higher office. How can you not be pissed off about that? On a completely separate note, hello, Kelly. Kelly Wildener has joined us. I hope you're enjoying it. Just a lot of stuff going on today that a lot of it's got me upset. And by the way, I know that there was a question, Tina had asked it before and said, hey, Mike, what can we do? We have nothing that we can do here. Well, there is things we can do. I'll give you a great example. I spoke to State Senator Fred Akshar about the password bill, about the red flag legislation. I gave him a lot of my documentation on the red flag legislation. And he took that and he went out and he decided to get the support of the public. And he put out a survey trying to gather the votes, the impression of the public to try and stop this social media password bill by State Senator Kevin Parker, to get the media's awareness up and to say, we shouldn't do this. And you know what? Over 6,000 people responded. He released the results back on December 21st of 2018. He released the results of it. It only was for about a week that he had the survey out there, and he got 6,000 responses. 79% of the people in his district, the State Senate District 52, absolutely opposed giving the government their private information. 89% of all people who took the survey agreed that the government should never be able to have your private information and should not be able to force you to give it to the government. And 97% of all the people outside of the New York Senate District 52 said no. And you want to know the difference here? Why is it 97% of the people outside of the 52nd district versus inside at 79%? If you're wondering, why is that number so much different? The 52nd Senate district includes a couple of colleges, in particular Binghamton University, which is a hotbed of liberal socialist ideology. And so that's why you see the difference. Once you step away from the colleges, look at the view when you step outside of New York City. If you get outside the city of Binghamton, if you come outside of Albany, if you're outside of Rochester, where there are colleges, and look at the regular people, you don't get socialism. You may get moderate Democrats, and they exist. You may get people who have different ideas, but you don't get socialism. You do not. That only happens in the hotbeds of liberalism, which is New York City, Albany, a couple of the other cities, usually wherever there's a college. That's where you see it. And these are people who have never, by the way, I recommend to every single Democratic socialist out there, everyone who believes in socialism, do me a favor. Go live in a socialist country. Go live in Venezuela. Go live in North Korea. Go to the Soviet Union. I've been there. I've lived in Moscow for a year and a half. I lived in it in the 80s when they were straight up communists and fighting any kind of change from communism. And I can tell you, you would be very scared and not happy with what you would see there. It's not a good system. No one believes it. Talk to someone who left a socialist nation. Ask any of the people who leave the socialist nations, why did they leave? Why did they come to this evil? According to socialists, America's evil. Ask the millions of people every year, about between 1 and 2 million people a year, come to the United States in the hope of becoming Americans and living in America. That's legal immigration. We're not talking about the illegal immigration. That's an entirely different subject. The legal immigrants that spent years waiting in line to come into the United States, 1 million to 2 million every single year, come into this nation. They think it's, you listen to a socialist, they tell you it's an evil nation. You ask these people who left that socialist nation what they think America's a godsend. It's it's the greatest place on earth. And one of the greatest governments ever in the existence of humankind and human culture and civilization. It says a lot. It says a lot there. By the way, Tina had made a comment when I was talking about Senator Kirsten Gillibrand lying to her constituents, lying to the American people in hopes of that lie giving her a shot at becoming president. Tina says, wow, a politician lied. Shocking. Yeah, I know. But just because we're so very, very used to hearing politicians lie to us, and not all of them do. It's actually a small number of politicians that seriously lie to the public. The majority don't, when you think about it. The overwhelming majority of politicians actually are pretty good people with really good ideas and seriously believe in the things they stand for. And I know I berate politicians all the time. If you notice, I only berate the politicians that don't actually stand for what they believe in, that somehow flip-flop, that say one thing to get elected and then do something else altogether, like Senator Kirsten Gillibrand. She lied to the public. She bald-faced misrepresented her position and her ethical viewpoint. So, yeah, I'm against that. I'm against people like Dianne Feinstein who have absolutely no idea what they're talking about and are only trying to impose their will on people, and they're using the power of government to do that. I'm against that. And I pick on them. And yeah, I pick on Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez because I believe our politicians should actually know what the hell they're talking about. And she doesn't. They should understand what they're talking about and the consequences of what they're talking about, at least to some extent, so they can reasonably say, yes, I know this is the good and the bad, and the good actually outweighs the bad. Not, I don't know any of the facts, but it doesn't matter because I morally feel like I am right. And since I have a feeling, it's more important than the actual facts or consequences. How in the world did that woman get elected? It drives me nuts. Or someone like Anthony Brindisi who won't tell you anything, which has been my experience on the campaign trail and following his career for 6 years now. We're going into our 6th year. And I honestly couldn't tell you where he stands on the Second Amendment or most issues because he won't tell you. That's another thing. I won't even get there. But that does bring me to the next thing on the list of things that I wanted to talk about. We're almost done here today. We've been going through a lot of information, I know. But I did want to address Steve Cornwell. Now, for the people who aren't familiar, and I've been talking a little bit of national politics, a bit of state politics, I now want to talk a little bit about something a little more local, but it also affects state politics, and it's a reflection of what we're seeing across the nation. In the Broome County region, the district attorney is a gentleman by the name of Steve Cornwell. And Steve Cornwell announced just last week that he's not seeking re-election this year. And everyone was shocked and amazed and wondering, why in the world would he not do that? He's been a decent district attorney, nothing special, nothing bad. And as New York State goes, to have a district attorney or an AG or most officials that aren't bad at their job is actually kind of rare. And we see so many of them have so many problems or are completely inefficient. So Steve Cornwell's been a decent district attorney. Everyone expected him to run again. And in fact, he said no. And his reason, unlike Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, instead of lying to people straight to their face like Governor Cuomo is doing as well, Steve Cornwell said, no, I plan to run for another office. I want to go for an elected office. So I don't want to lie to the people, say I'm going to go through my full term when I plan to go for another elected office. And as much as I think that his timing of it was absolutely horrendous, I think it was a wonderful thing. It's a positive that he was at least honest with the public to say, I'm going to run for something else, as opposed to the duplicitous and vile nature of what Senator Kirsten Gillibrand and what Governor Cuomo are doing in saying, I'm going to finish out my term, except they're running for president, lying to the public. So I want to give Steve Cornwell that positive. But in fact, now here's the negative on that. Because let's be fair, there's a negative to that. Steve Cornwell decided that he wanted to run. He announced this, and it's fine. We know that he made the decision in the summer of 2018. By his own words on WNBF this week, talking about it, saying that he made the decision in the summer of 2018, which means he either directly or indirectly sabotaged the then incumbent Congresswoman, Claudia Tenney, who was a Republican. Because it's a lot easier to run for Congress when you don't have to have a partisan primary for an incumbent. It's easier to run without a primary or without not fighting an incumbent in your own party. And so either directly or indirectly, since he says he made his decision in summer of 2018, he effectively decided that he was going to sabotage to some degree, whether he's not putting his public support behind her or his monetary support or his physical support behind her. He sabotaged her campaign, which I find I have a problem with, having learned that from his own words. And I'm happy if he thinks I'm misunderstanding it, which I may be. Steve, come on to the program. You're another politician who I've seen you around, but you've never actually bothered to speak with me. You've never done an interview. So I'm only left with being able to speculate. If I'm wrong, come on to the program. Please explain how I'm wrong. But now he made his other error, though, was Anthony Brindisi got sworn in, and the day that news was being reported last week, Friday, then that's when Steve says he's going to be running for Congress. It's a soft rollout, what we call in politics in the industry as a soft rollout. Basically testing the waters, letting people know and not shaking anything up too much, which is kind of stupid. Anthony hadn't even done anything at that point except swear in, and here he is getting a challenger, which is just stupid. And at least have a reason why you're running against. I have a reason why I would run against him. By the way, I should mention, I've run for Congress before. A lot of people know this. Maybe if you're newer to the program, you may not know. I did that in 2014. Spent a year of my life getting ready for the 2014 election before stepping out and supporting Congresswoman Claudia Tenney. And I am one of a couple of people who are considered possible candidates for the New York 22nd District in 2020. I have not made up my mind on that. I haven't decided that. It's far too early to make that decision, so I haven't gone there. I don't know. I might or I might not. But Steve is obviously saying yes. And here's the problem. Because he's done that, I now know that for a fact there are 3 candidates running for the New York 22nd District, all on the Republican side, not including me. Plus, there are 2 other candidates, one from another party, who is not prepared to speak yet. But I know of at least 2 different parties, 5 people running for the New York 22nd District race already. And I know that because Steve has come out so early to make his announcement, the others are now scrambling to come forward as well, and they're moving ahead, making phone calls, gathering up money, trying to gather support to make their own announcements near term. So we have just, because of him making an announcement on the day that the Democrat, Anthony Brindisi, got sworn in, we now have the New York 22nd 2020 race already starting. And this is one of the most popular races in the nation. And I find it really interesting because even my contacts in Washington, D.C., some of them being Democrats, know that he's going to have trouble. One of the biggest things is he's not going to have all the money he had last time. 2020 is about trying to beat Donald Trump. And many of the politicians are going to be thrown to the wolves, left on their own, because the Democratic Party is going to be focused on trying to beat Donald Trump. So it's going to be very interesting. It's going to be very interesting. And I don't know if I'll throw my hat in there to see what I can do about it. But I might. I just might. Just to make it interesting for Anthony and many other people. And let them know, I'm still somewhere around 5-7%. I don't know. It's something. It's something else. So that's just a situation. Just wanted to let you know. It throws me off when I hear. It's interesting to watch all of the dominoes fall down, to watch certain people's names pop up and down that may have run before, who may be trying to get money now and are out there, well, just, they're doing a lot. And I don't know, I think it's too soon. But you tell me, do you think it's too soon for people to start campaigning already for the 2020 race, which is literally 2 years away? Or is it perfectly fine? Is Anthony Brindisi such a bad person or a bad politician that he needs to be removed immediately? I don't know the answer to that. I know what my opinion of it is, but that's an entirely different question. And since I potentially can be a candidate, I don't want to go into too deeply into my thought on that. But it is very interesting that I've already been asked by a couple of politicians, a couple of politicos about whether I'm running. I've already been told and I've already confirmed what's going on in various counties with other candidates that I've become aware of, people getting money and everything. So it's very interesting right now. And it's insane, the conversations that are going on and the conversations people are having with me about this. So I don't know. It's when I look at this, I mean, look, this is only January 12th of 2019. We have so much going on in our nation that is insane. These are crazy things. We got politicians bald-faced lying to people. We got politicians making up facts. We've got politicians who are just trying to steal our rights and praying and confident that we're not even going to notice that this is happening. I can keep talking about this. I've been talking for an hour and a half and having conversations with everyone, which I always enjoy. I love talking with you guys. But I can tell you, it's amazing that we have so much going on in such crazy ways. I couldn't have told you that this would have been part of it I could have told you is the outcome that we were going to see in 2019. But it's so much crazier than I would have expected. So much crazier. And because of people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, because of Senator Dianne Feinstein and her insanity going on there, because of Gillibrand lying to people, Andrew Cuomo and his efforts to make New York State the socialist capital of New York State, or the communist bedrock of the United States of America. These things scare me. But you know what doesn't scare me? I mean, there's something that makes me feel very, very good. Hang on. I just want you to know this, folks. Newsflash. Newsflash. The thing that doesn't scare me at all is the American people. Not the politicians, not the politicos, not those people who are elected or pundits like myself. The thing that makes me really confident at the end of the day, that lets me keep doing this, even as I watch some of the insanity that's going on, is to know that there are regular people out there. 90% of the people will not comment, will not speak about it. I see the numbers. I see how many people watch the podcasts or listen to it, and I see they're overwhelmingly more people are involved and watching it than ever will say anything. And those good people, Republicans, Democrats, Libertarians, Conservatives, Independents, they're all the bedrock of this nation. They believe in the Constitution. They believe in our rights. They stand up for the law. They're going to make it right. Not the politicians, not the pundits, not the politicos that run around trying to influence those two groups. No. It's the regular people of America. And at some point, and it always happens, they step up and they make a change. And it'll happen again. I do believe that. I do believe that because I believe in America. Strongly, absolutely believe in America. And I don't know a better message I could end this simulcast with today than to say, I believe in America. I believe in the people. And I am sure, without doubt, that America will eventually be okay. We're going to have some bumpy roads. There is no doubt we're going to have a lot of bumps in 2019. We're going to have some problems. But I think the people will come together and make it better. And that's why I love America. That's why I vote. I have it right up here on the screen with me. It's one of the things I truly believe. And I think that everyone should vote. And I think we will. And I think if we do, we make the nation better sooner. I truly believe that. So don't be dismayed. It is important for us to know what's going on, because if we don't know what's going on, we can't improve things. We can't. But I do want you to know, I'm here for you. I'm willing to stand up and take the slings and the arrows and let people shout at me so that they don't have to shout at you, to make sure we can have the conversation, to make sure that we can make things better, because we will. And Tina mentioned, just before we go, Tina mentions, well, I have mixed feelings. It's good to get your name out there so you are recognized at election time, but it's so early and people are sick to death of the campaign from the recent election. I find the third-party candidates wait too late to try to get their candidates out there, and that's why they have a hard time getting enough votes to win. I would like to see Larry Sharpe run again. Well, let me answer a great comment, and I do want to answer that for you before we go. So, Tina, Larry Sharpe won't run for Congress in the New York 22nd District. That's not going to happen. I haven't had him say that, and I'll be happy to ask him on Wednesday, but my understanding very clearly is Larry Sharpe won't run for New York 22nd District. He might run for president, which is unlikely, but he might. But he won't run for New York for the New York 22nd District politician. There may be others in the Libertarian Party that will step forward now that they are an official party and run for Congress. We'll see. And I'll give you more information about that as that comes out. Often, yes, third parties, and now the Libertarian Party is no longer, well, it's a third party, but it's not in New York State. But often, a lot of the reasons is because everyone's afraid of money. Quite honestly, I believe you can run for most offices for a lot less money than people are spending on it, because they're spending money on commercials, which really aren't necessary. The more you have to spend money on a commercial, the more you're basically trying to sell a lie. Look at how much money Senator Kirsten Gillibrand spent. It's ridiculous. You need the media to promote the lie to make people buy into it so you get the votes. And third parties have a harder time getting access to the money and getting access to the media, so it takes them longer to get involved. But that's changing. Social media is changing that to an extent. And we're seeing that grow and develop more and more. And we've seen it change a lot just between 2010 and now. Massive sea change of difference in social media, how it affects and informs people with elections. And we're seeing that change. Some of it very bad, but some of it good as well. Is it too early? Yeah, because we got slaughtered. We got slammed with $20 million worth of ads, 14 million of them coming from Anthony Brindisi and Nancy Pelosi alone. Will we see that going forward? No. I had predicted in 2015, 2016, 2017, I had, somewhere in there, I had made a promise. I know it was on one of the programs I've talked about the 2018 race, and I had expected that it would be about 14, 16 million. It actually wound up being 20 million. I will tell you that as of today, I expect that the 2020 New York 22nd congressional race will probably be all totaled about $12 million, 10 to 12 million. It's going to be about half as much because so much money is going to be put to the president. Could I be wrong? Very likely. Well, my estimates were closer to the truth than everybody else. Do I expect it to be closer this time? Yes. Do I think the 22nd race will be as popular as last time? Not as much. Because the 22nd district is about to disappear. As of because New York State's going to lose 2 congressional seats, because the economic policies of Governor Cuomo have been so wonderful that people are leaving so fast, and so many of them, that we're going to lose an additional 2 seats. By the way, in case people didn't know it, that makes about 20 seats. New York State has lost about 20 congressional seats since 1954, since the 1950s. We just constantly bleed seats. We've been losing people left and right because of the policies of the socialists as they have been reinforced year after year. So we'll see the tone calm down. We'll see some of the commercials and the onslaught tone down. I know a lot of organizations are aware of the feedback that people had about so many ads. And I think you'll see that in the backlash that came from it. You'll see that slow down. But is it still too early? Maybe. I think it is, but then again, it makes sense. I understand why. And I know that now that it's started, the dominoes have already begun to fall. It's going to continue. They're going to see more dominoes fall. So that's just what's going to happen. But I've been on, let's see, we've been talking about an hour and 40 minutes here. And quite honestly, my voice is cracking. It's a lot of talking. It's a lot of conversation, and I enjoy it. But I want to be able to do it well and capably. So what I'll do is we'll end this episode. I think it's been a very interesting conversation. I love it. I'm happy. If you want to contact me, you can reach me at my Twitter, which is at MVConsult. You can reach us at the website for the No Soundbites Allowed Aloud podcast, which is vospolitical.podbean.com, where you can hear the audio-only version of the podcast. You can go to my website, the Voss Political Commentary website, which is mvass.com, and you can leave comments there for this podcast or any of the articles, over 2,000 articles, over 500 videos that we have submitted there, and you'll be happy to answer any question or comment that's made there. Please get in touch. And if you can, please donate. PayPal, info@vossconsult.com. Donate $1, donate $5. If you can, donate $500. Help us keep the lights on. It's always important. We do thank you for that. And of course, my email is the info@vossconsult.com. And you can leave me an email as well. I look forward to it. I want everyone to be well. Have a fun, good Saturday. And after this kind of a heavy conversation, have a drink. Enjoy yourselves. And I'll talk to everyone very, very soon. Thank you.